Okay, welcome everyone to a new episode of Technique Tuesday. This week we're going to be looking at how to perform the dip with perfect technique. But before we jump into the technique itself, let's have a quick look at what muscles we're going to be targeting first. So with the dip, we're training both the upper and lower pecs through shoulder adduction, basically bringing the arm across the body closer to the midline like in a bench press. The anterior deltoids and clavicular, or upper head of the pecs, are going to be performing shoulder flexion, so basically bringing your arm forward like in a front raise. And of course, the triceps will be involved through elbow extension, where the arm straightens out. Now in 2010, Dr. Brett Contreras ran a solo EMG experiment and found that the weighted dip activated the lower pecs the most. However, just notice that the weighted dip still saw higher peak EMG activation for the upper chest than even the incline bench press with 225 pounds. So just because the lower chest was the most active doesn't imply that dips are only a lower chest exercise. They will in fact hit the entire pec muscle to a very significant degree, making it a great overall mass and strength builder. Now, similar to the pull-up, many people think of the dip as a body weight only movement, often being used as a sort of finisher exercise for high reps, and it can be used for this purpose. However, since it trains multiple joints in a strong position, I think it's actually smarter in most cases to load the dip in a more moderate to heavy rep zone, something around 6 to 12 reps. Although if you are using them as a high rep finisher, you certainly can go as high as 30 reps or more with body weight. Now, despite the dip being a heavy compound movement, it is in fact much less technical than the bench press or overhead press, so it's much more acceptable to push sets much closer to failure, allowing the muscles to experience fatigue under heavy load, something they may not be getting from the basic presses. With that said, if you are new to the dip, I think you should start out with relatively low exertions, and then as you master technique, you can gradually work your way up to higher effort sets, since even small deviations in form can lead to pain under heavy load. For the sake of this video, we're going to be assuming that to be close to failure in the 6 to 12 rep zone, you're going to need to be adding external resistance to the movement, and you can do this by using a loading belt or by having a training partner place a dumbbell between your legs. However, if you're reaching or nearing failure with body weight only in that rep range, then it's much more important to master form first, and once you hit 12 reps with body weight, then you can gradually increase the weight from there. And of course, there's no shame at all in using the assistance from the machine, which will most likely be required for beginners and overweight individuals in order to maintain proper form. But regardless of your specific loading strategy, the execution will be more or less the same. So you want to find a dip rack or any pair of parallel bars and take a grip just outside shoulder width. Prop yourself up so you can grip the handles with your elbows and shoulders fully extended, and place your weight onto the handles by curling your legs in behind you, which is going to prevent your feet from hitting the ground on each rep. Now, before beginning the lowering phase, you want to make sure your shoulder blades are slightly retracted and depressed to make sure everything is nice and stable around the shoulder joint. And you want to lean your torso slightly forward, which is going to shift a bit of the emphasis onto the chest. You don't want to exaggerate this forward lean to the point that it starts to look like a sort of floating push-up, but you also don't want to do the dip completely upright, which can lead to shoulder pain and take the pecs more out of the movement. So slowly lower your torso down under control for about a 2-second lowering phase, and a smooth, controlled negative is extremely important on the dip so you don't accidentally extend the range of motion past your shoulder's natural capabilities. And on the negative, you want to keep your knees pinched together and keep your hips extended to prevent kipping, which is a form of cheating where your knees come forward, creating momentum and changing your center of balance. You also want to keep your scapulae retracted and keep your thoracic spine extended by not allowing your upper back to round as you descend. Go down until your upper arm and forearm make about a 90-degree angle, or to the point where you feel a strong stretch in your pecs and triceps. Now, for some people, that'll be slightly below 90 degrees, but I think most people with healthy shoulders should aim to get to the point where their upper arm is parallel to the floor. Without pausing at the bottom, you want to reverse the motion by driving your hands down into the handles while keeping your torso in the same position. And at the top of the range, you should make sure your shoulder blades are still retracted and your upper back is still extended. Now, I would say the most common error on the dip is anterior scapular tilting. And in my opinion, this is why many people can run into shoulder problems with the dip, and why it's become a bit of a controversial exercise. And most people know to keep the scapulae retracted and depressed on the bench press because it puts the shoulder in a safer position, but not as many people carry the same advice to the dip, despite it being very biomechanically similar. So before dipping, you want to pull your shoulder blades together and tuck them down, which you can think about as just keeping your upper back straight, and try not to go too deep, and make sure you reverse the motion before you start to lose that stable shoulder position. Now, another very common error is trying to stay too upright. People will often just assume that a more upright posture is going to hit the triceps more, but in reality, the pecs, delts, and triceps are all going to be very highly active when the dip is performed with a natural forward inclination. And I'm not a big fan personally of trying to manipulate the movement with different grip widths or different postures to try to target different muscles. I'd much rather see you find a good, comfortable lifting groove that feels natural for your particular anthropometry, and then stick with that and get better at it. But with that said, trying to stay too upright can certainly lead to excessive stress on the shoulder joint, while at the same time taking some of the pecs contributing power out of the movement. I'm not a big fan of bench dips as an alternative here, where your torso is out in front of your shoulder, since you're so much more likely to see anterior scapular tilting early in the range of motion. So if you're not able to do the free weight dip, you can use the assisted dip machine or a weighted dip machine if your gym has one, although I don't think these machines can truly replace the strength and overall mass building potential of a properly performed free weight dip. And weighted push-ups are another pretty good replacement, but you might not be able to get that same degree of stretch on the pecs, and they can be difficult to load past a certain strength threshold. So guys, that's all that I have for the dip. If you guys are interested in putting all of this information into a full training routine that you can follow, you can check out all of my training programs, including my chest and bench press specialization programs on my website, both of which include a dip in the routine, and I'll have both of those linked down below. So thanks again so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to leave me a like if you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already so that you don't miss future Technique Tuesday episodes, and I'll see you guys all here next Tuesday.